Shall we start?
Yes, Manu.
Thank you. Good evening. Hearty welcome to all to the 10th SSI Plenty in 20 talk series. We are eagerly waiting to hear from Sri Sam K. Sakaria sir on biomechanical strategy for human.
Volume is very low. We could not able to hear.
It's okay for us, sir. Maybe you can increase your volume.
Is it okay, sir?
Now it is okay. It was okay. I think it is okay for some people, and for some people may not be. I think.
Okay, sir. Please let me introduce our esteemed speaker. We are honored to have our Sam K. Sakaria sir, and we welcome you for this talk series. He is a distinguished engineer and researcher with extensive contribution to control systems and robotics. He is a graduate from College of Engineering Trivandrum, CET. He earned his MTech in cryogenic and control and instrumentation from IIT Bombay, where he was awarded the Professor Ravankar Award for Academic Excellence. His pioneering doctoral research focused on bipedal locomotion control, leading to a novel framework for humanoid robot autonomy. With a career spanning over 3 decades, he played a key role at the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, specializing the servo actuation system for launch vehicles. He later served as the head of Control Design Division and has been an adjunct professor at IST Trivandrum since 2010. He recognized with the Space Gold Medal by the Aerospace Society of India in 2006, and his current research interests include multi-body dynamic systems and leg robotics. His groundbreaking work have been published in leading robotic journals, making him a leading voice in this field. We welcome you for this talk series, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for the nice introduction, and very happy to see many of my old friends also. So at the outset, I would like to thank the organizers, especially SSI Trivandrum chapter, especially Dr. Jayakumar, for inviting me to deliver this prestigious Plenty in 20 series talk, and also on a very important topic of humanoid locomotion. You know that nowadays there is a lot of importance given to the realization of a human-like humanoid robot as well as its locomotion. In near future, it is going to appear in all the fields of life, like space, military, industry, as well as common society. And only problem is it's a very elaborate topic. So to pay justice to the plenty portion, I have given sufficient number of slides, but to give justice to the 20 in the title, I have to rush through some of the slides. So let me first share that presentation material. Hope all of you are able to see the screen.
Yes, sir, we are able to.
And also hear my voice clearly.
Yes, sir.
Okay. First, let me show you some of the recent humanoids, especially with respect to 2025. Most of you know about Optimus, Electric Atlas, G1 from Unitree, Digita from Agility Robotics, etc. Different robots are having different functionalities. Most of them are like human, but some are not like human being. Their locomotion control schemes are slightly different. When you come to the control of the humanoid, one major portion is locomotion control for humanoid robots. Another is the manipulation control. Today, I will be talking only on the locomotion part, which is more challenging than manipulation. There are two schools of thoughts. First one is a priori trajectory optimization followed by stiff tracking in joint space. Joint space means joint space of the humanoid robot, whereas task space means the Cartesian space where the humanoid is walking, working, etc. Cartesian space is here three-dimensional. This first approach is the approach normally followed by humanoids developed nowadays, But there is another approach, behavior activation followed by compliant emulation in task space. That is having much more benefits compared to the first one. The first one is optimal in ideal situation, but not robust against parameter variation. It is not reactive to unplanned situations. It cannot accommodate energy efficient passive dynamic modes of bipedal locomotion, and also generally results in non-compliant mechanical interaction with the environment. If it hits an environment, it will get damaged. But on the other hand, behavior activation followed by compliant emulation scheme, that is behavior-based control scheme, it is having a lot of other benefits. Let me first define what is meant by behavior. A dynamic behavior, they are optimal task-based motion regulators with global objectives such as center of mass motion regulation, inertial orientation regulation of torso, head, etc., and swing leg joint coordination, center of pressure, pattern regulation on foot sole, different types of inverted pendulum behaviors in stance phase, etc. Also, it will have two-level architecture with the higher level for activation of appropriate behaviors based on current phase of walking, and the lower level really does the emulation of activated behavior in coordination with other behaviors in the humanoid hardware framework. The benefits are it can generate periodically stable walking gait. It possesses robustness against terrain parameter variation and external disturbance. It provides compliant interaction with environment, just like human being. It provides high locomotion efficiency since it accommodates passive inverted pendulum behaviors. Easy to manipulate, trade-off between efficiency and stability as we are doing during walking. Finally, it can mimic the nature's benchmark control scheme perfected in human being. When we come to locomotion, one very important thing is that is coming to our mind is wheeled locomotion. So wheeled locomotion is the first one which comes to our mind because it is the most efficient means of locomotion. Its kinetic energy is preserved while it is moving along a plain terrain, and no vertical motion for the center, and 100% efficient in ideal situation. But wheels require a continuous path which is available only in specified portion of the land. So next option is to think of a rimless wheel with only spokes. This will have intermittent impact on the ground with rocking motion up and down as well as horizontally also. If you use say spring type spokes like this, then we can probably conserve the energy. The kinetic energy can be conserved as potential energy on impact and recovered back. But the vertical motion we cannot avoid. There was a person called Magyar who has actually conceived a novel mechanism how to create the spoked wheel locomotion using only two legs. With swinging leg, the free leg will swing forward and take the place of the next spoke wheel. Finally, on impact, the spoked wheel as well as the leg will look similar with the impact. So this is a mechanization of the spoked wheel using two-leg mechanism. Later, it was perfected in a good walking mechanism by Cornell University team. This is known as a passive dynamic walker. It is even having swinging arms. It can freely walk down a slope given like this. So finally, the real motivation of legged mechanism comes out of a wheel mechanism, only replacing the wheel mechanism by a spoked wheel like this. So we can conceive our legs are distributed over the center of mass of our body around the circumference of a wheel and moving like this. What are the contributors to the high efficiency in human walk? It is fairly understood that human walking is about 75% less costly than both quadrupedal as well as bipedal walking in chimpanzees. This high walking efficiency in human is attributed to various factors such as mechanical structure and metabolic efficiency of joint muscles, coordinated control of joints to optimally utilize a passive forward fall under gravity, and potential energy storage and release from muscle fibers, etc. Hence, it is important to reproduce both the structural features such as mass inertia distribution, major joint degree of freedom, as well as the control architecture and actual system characteristics to achieve the energetic efficiency and agility of human walk. Now, when we come to human walk, there are important behavioral models behind the human efficient walk. One is given by A.D. Kuo, Arthur D. Kuo's inverted pendulum model for human walking gait. There are different variants of the same thing. One variant is spring-loaded inverted pendulum. Another is linear inverted pendulum. But the essence of this pendulum model is it's a passive forward falling. While it is passively forward falling, our ankle joint is able to push our mass, the body's mass forward, along with supporting the vertical gravity force. So this is one of the most important behavior which introduce high efficiency for human locomotion. If such a behavior is not there in humanoid locomotion control, all the benefit of bipedal locomotion will be lost. And this is a mechanism which provides highest locomotion efficiency for human gait. If you consider a quadrupedal gait, you cannot get such a forward lean angle because both the fore leg as well as rear legs are in contact with the ground. Then come to the skeletal features. These are actually skeletal structure of different apes are shown here. All are able to walk on bipeds, but the first four are normally not normally walking on biped legs. They use knuckle type of walking also, and also they climbed over trees. So their structure is made for such a very rare type of incidence of bipedal walking. But when we compare human skeleton with the same scale, you can see its height is different, and also the center of mass is far ahead of that one, and the central line, the offset from the central line, both sides is very less. So this provides high efficient locomotion. So when you generate a humanoid robot, make a humanoid robot, it is very important to mimic the mass inertia properties, the overall topology structure, joint structure, skeletal structure, all these things is very important. So if you see the compare chimpanzee walking and human walking, you see the difference. Let us see the kinematic features of human walking gait. We can study the kinematic features by dividing the 3D plane into 3D space into 3 planes. One is the sagittal plane, there is a forward motion happens. Another is the frontal plane where lateral motion happens. Another is the transverse plane where the rotation of the human body about the vertical axis is happening. And similarly, another very important feature of human walk is the footprint. Say this is the this characterize, first of all, the foot sole shape is very important. Then the lateral offset between consecutive stance foot is very important, and also the divergence angle from the central line is also very important. All are leading to both efficiency, agility, as well as the speed of locomotion and disturbance during the locomotion. Another is a very important feature is the coordination of the swing leg during locomotion. This is actually captured from a photograph. Then these are the important phases in a human gait locomotion. One gait can be considered as a cyclic process like this, having 40% swing phase, 60% of support phase. Out of that 20%, 10% and 10% as double support phase. And there are multiple even phases. The even start with heel strike here, then flat foot, mid stance, heel off, toe off. Then this stance foot goes to swing mode, acceleration, mid swing, then deceleration, again it goes and strike. So we will have different control behaviors during each of the different control phases to mimic the high energy efficient locomotion pattern. Then biomechanical control strategy. Earlier we are discussing about the kinematic features. Let us now come to the control aspect. This is actually a 2-level control. The supervisory level control is done by the brain, and the task level, local level control is done by spinal cord along with nervous systems and musculoskeletal structure together. And so we also should have such a two-level control. And major control objectives in human locomotion is minimization of metabolic cost and ensuring sufficient postural stability margin for the given terrain properties. And that is achieved through various behavior primitives of human walk. There are behavior primitives attached with the upper body, stance leg, swing leg, and also regulation of center of mass forward velocity. The regulation of the upper body can be shown like this. See, if you observe a human being walking, during the entire phase of the walk, the upper body orientation in the sagittal plane is maintained along a particular inertial orientation like this. If we increase the speed, the orientation will have better forward lean. If you are climbing over a slopy hill also, forward lean will increase. Another important characteristic is the center of mass of the entire body is guided through a central line between the footholds. Even though this is the reference trajectory, the actual center of mass will oscillate like this because of the finite bandwidth of the regulator loop. Then it is controlled by the center of pressure trajectories under the foot sole. So all this coordination is very important. Then the pelvic link motions shown here, they are also very important. Then observation from human walk, there are stance like control primitives are given like this. This is the stance phase. Heel contact, flat foot. During each of the phases, the stance foot is taking different angles. So this will give the motion reference, how it should be moved. But that is not the only thing. It is having the effect of the stance leg is to impart kinetic energy, forward energy to the center of mass, both braking action as well as accelerating action. So that is the major control objective, which is coordinating various motion controls of the various joints. And as a whole, the kinematic pattern of motion of the various legs, joints, for example, hip joint, this is the motion pattern, knee joint, this is the motion pattern, and ankle joint, this is the motion pattern throughout the one gait. So we can have different regulators which is switching from one mode to another mode. Then this is the coordination pattern for the swing leg. And altogether, the postural stability can be achieved through the analysis of orbital stability. See, you can consider the gait as an orbital periodic process, and the periodic process orbit can be sampled at every heel strike. Throughout the upper body orientation remains more or less same, but the legs are coordinated to move in a particular periodic fashion. Finally, we can analyze the stability through Poincare map. And along with that, all the control action should be finally satisfying the trajectory of the center of pressure under the foot sole, because all motions have to be finally supported by the ground reaction force. This is the optimal trajectory of the center of pressure and how the center of mass is moving in between the center of pressure trajectory. Finally, the kinetic energy and potential energy, the total sum is conserved, it will move like this. Now, coming to the implementation side, first one is structure design. The mass distribution should be same, inertial distribution should be same, then joint mechanism, joint degree of freedom, topology, structure, kinematic range, all should be similar to human being. For example, I'm comparing two humanoids. One is called Artemis, another is Thor RD. You can see this is the mass distribution of the human being. Foot is having only 2.9%. But if you consider the foot mass here, this will be heavy, but here will be more or less closing. So this is the distribution of the mass. One is almost similar to human being, whereas other is much higher. So such a humanoid cannot walk like a human being, where this is able to do that. Similarly, actuation systems also matters. Then actual design should be back drivable, torque controlled actuator. And finally, human control design should have multi-level, and all these trade-offs between postural stability and locomotion efficiency can be done. And now to analyze the control, we should have to assign the coordinate structure. This is a 12-link structure projected to the sagittal plane, and we can assign postural state. Finally, in the configuration space, you can analyze the periodic stability of the system. I am just rushing through various primitives assumed in a typical walking gait, and there are constraints are also there. You have to satisfy the constraint. Final figure will show how different primitives are switched from different phases of the control walking gait. Finally, this have to be solved along with subject to the holonomic and non-holonomic constraint. Finally, we will get the inverse dynamics control law to implement the torque. This is the overall controller structure. I will show some of the videos of this implementation in a planar walking gait. This one is the planar walking with 1 meter per second forward velocity. Next one is it is climbing down at minus 20 degrees slope. All are having the same behavioral primitives and slightly changed as a function of the slope. Then coming to climbing up, you can climb up like a human being climbing up with a larger forward lean. Then uneven, slightly uneven with step and slope discontinuities. It will automatically adapt to various situations. We need to have to do any a priori planning to optimize the trajectory. Then more random type of thing, it will, you can see that it is almost mimicking somewhat our type of behaviors while we are moving around an unplanned terrain. This is unplanned terrain, only the parameters are known only in the next immediate footwards. So this particular behavior-based approach is very compliant and it's adaptable to various situations. And finally, its stability can be analyzed. The velocity pattern, you can see that velocity is strictly regulated 1 meter per second, 1.5 authorities. And also the different trajectories will converge together, ensuring the contraction stability of the periodic gait. These are the slides, and thank you very much. Any questions are there, you can ask.
Thank you, Sam Zakaria. This is a very, very thought-provoking lecture you have given. Really, very complex things you have explained in a very, very nice way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Jaykumar here. Just one question, sir. When we are trying to, can you hear me, sir?
Thank you, Jaykumar, Dr. Jaykumar.
Sir, just one question. When we are, the current research, is there any research in the direction that to overcome the limitations of existing human system? Because when we are trying to mimic, if there is any limitation, that will also be there coming up, no?
Yeah, limitations in terms of the actuation mechanism, for example, power point of view, that the kinematic range, that is a limitation. Whenever you talk about the biological systems, no?
Yeah.
It cannot rotate through 180 degree, more than 180 degree, etc. But here it can rotate 360 degrees sometimes. So it can definitely overcome, it can overperform in one case, but efficiency point of view is quite difficult to achieve the human efficiency.
Okay. Right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sam, sir, very interesting.
Yeah.
Just one point. This swing, its role in stability is understood, but how does it play a role in efficiency? I could not get.
Yeah, this stability, efficiency, they are actually, you can think while you are walking leisurely over a plain terrain, we are not much bothered about stability. We are walking like a rolling wheel. But suppose some obstacles or some unevenness is coming, then we will become more cautious. Then what we'll do is during each of the phase of the walking, we will apply more braking on the center of mass motion and then followed by forward pushing. Whereas in the efficient locomotion, the braking action on the stance foot will be less. Most of the energy will be transferred forward. So while we apply braking action, that actually gives a period. For example, I have shown this center of pressure trajectory earlier. This center of pressure. In an efficient locomotion, the center of pressure will smoothly move from the starting point to the ending point without any stoppage. But when we are slightly cautious about our footsteps, then we will apply more brakes, so the center of pressure will have to and fro motion along this trajectory. That will reduce the efficiency but increase the stability. I hope you understood.
Yeah, I think it's clear. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Sam Sakriya.
Yes, Dr.
Nambure.
Narayanam. Yeah, please.
I just wanted whatever simulation you have shown, different terrain situations, you have nicely shown the simulations.
Okay.
And the governing mathematical coordinate transformations, its matrix and all, you have shown earlier.
Yeah.
But whatever you have done here, it is purely in an open loop profile mode only it is done, is it not?
No. Your question is very relevant. The benefit of this is each of the behaviors are actually working in closed loop. Closed loop, multi-level closed loops are there. One is each of the joints are controlled in closed loop. Another is overall behaviors. For example, center of mass trajectory. That is in another closed loop. So this closed loop only provides the robustness and disturbance rejection. So it is not like, but on the other hand, offline trajectory cases, once the offline trajectory is optimized, they are not varying with respect to working situation. We are strictly following, the joints are commanded to strictly follow the trajectory. That is a real open loop situation with respect to overall global objectives of working.
Yeah, okay, I understood. That is between the joints, the toe, yes, there that closed loop action is definitely coming. But overall, for a human being to walk, the understanding of the profile is based on his vision and all. No?
Yes.
Such situations are not brought out in this type of a simulation.
Yeah, see, human being walking, the vision is actually for planning phase, but vestibular action, that our ear and that only provides the inertial orientation sense to our body.
Yeah.
That is actually done here. Here, this will have inertial sensors, and that will ensure that the orientation of the torso is well regulated in the inertial frame of reference.
Oh, I see.
So that, and also the center of mass velocity also is regulating the inertial frame of reference. So that will provide the reference link. Then with respect to that, various other joints are periodically regulated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other doubts?
Sir,
in this simulation,
sir, one question. I am S.P. Tiwari. Actually, really very interesting things. But in your simulations, whenever robot is locomotion is doing, any friction you have considered?
Yes, friction is essential there. Otherwise, it will slip. We are assuming a particular friction coefficient for the ground. We using that is used in the, and if that tangential force is exceeding the friction cone, the leg will definitely slip. That also will be taken care of in the simulation.
So that suppose whatever simulation we are doing, it is a particular environment condition. Suppose similar robots, it is going the spacewalk, so there will be a different type of simulation. No?
Spacewalk is different because there the friction is not coming, and
not
the locomotion locomotion itself will be we don't have to use such legs. Some other mechanism we have to use.
Yeah, that will be, we have to use another mechanism.
Yeah, but on lunar or Martian environment, definitely different G level, you can definitely use this key.
Yeah, okay, there it can be useful. Okay, sir, thank you. It was very interesting. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Sam sir, just one doubt.
Yes.
Your inertial sensors are also located close to the ear in this particular simulation?
No. Here, what we do is normally the pelvic link, pelvis, is taken as the reference because we have this is the world frame, and the center of the pelvis is the first reference link coordinate frame on the humanoid robot. So here we make use of the difference. I will tell you, in human body there will be a torsional rotational motion of the torso, and because of that the particular structure. But in humanoid robot we can arrest the rotational motion sometimes right from the pelvis itself, so the upper body can be assumed as an inertially stabilized thing, and that is a good platform for that. But if you are providing rotational motion for the torso link, definitely we can mount the inertial sensors in the head itself. Two different options are there. We can think both.
Okay. Thanks for all participants. Since this topic is an very interesting and it will take hours for discussion and other things, and since it will be violating our 20 in 20 concept, I request any queries or anything is there. Our speaker, Dr. Sam K. Sakaria sir, is available through online as well as in other occasions. At this juncture, I thank all the participants for attending this talk by our Sam sir. First of all, I wish to thank our President, Dr. Jayakumar sir, for selecting this excellent topic when whole world is celebrating our return of Sunita Williams, that spacewalk like that. And an opt topic was when this point was discussed, immediately he suggested about our Sam sir, and when this point was told to Sam sir, immediately he has agreed, and in spite of his busy schedules and other things, he has allocated the time, and such an apt presentation he has given to all to us at this juncture. From the my personal perspective as well as from SSI Trivandrum chapter, I accord my sincere thanks to sir. And such a vast topic Sar has covered within 20 minutes. I wondered how Sarul is going to cover such a topic in 20 minutes, but today everybody, we all witnessed the thing. And I request anybody is having any personal queries, Sar is approachable. You can approach him and get the query clarified. And I thank all the EC members as well as all participants for attending this talk by our Ajahn Posar, AST Sri Dr. Shyam sir. And I thank one and all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.